Mike stood at the crossroads. He didn't know how he got there. He couldn't remember the road. Couldn't even remember the last time he slept. Had it been days? Weeks? Months? He had walked. That much he knew. Walked and walked until his feet bled, until the world around him disappeared into dust and silence. And now he was here, alone. The wind blew slowly, but it wasn't the kind of wind that cooled you down. It was dry, empty, like it had passed through graves before reaching his skin. He looked around. There was nothing. No buildings. No birds. No insects. No sky even. Just a dull gray above him, like a ceiling that forgot how to breathe. The crossroads stretched out in 4 directions, but they led nowhere. Just open space. Like a desert, only worse. At the center stood a single dead tree. No leaves. No roots showing. Just still. Lifeless. Like it had been waiting. And yet, somehow, it was the only thing that felt alive. Mike stared at it, chest rising and falling. His hands shook. His lips were dry. The red guitar was strapped to his back, still shining, though everything else had turned to ash. He took a few slow steps forward, until he stood under the tree. No sound, no echo, just the quiet. Then suddenly, a voice. Behind him. "You took long enough." Mike didn't jump, didn't scream. His body was too tired for fear. His soul already halfway gone. He turned slowly. There was a man standing at the edge of the crossroads, dressed in an old dusty black suit. No shoes. Skin pale, like chalk soaked in moonlight. Face calm. Too calm. He had no shadow. The man smiled. "You know where you are, don't you?" he asked, voice like honey sliding down a blade. Mike didn't answer. "You came here because you're tired, because your world spat you out, laughed at you, rejected your music, said you were nothing." The man stepped forward, hands behind his back. "But you believe, don't you?" Mike stared. "You believe you were meant for more. You believe that somewhere out there, you were born to be heard, to be seen, to be worshipped." Mike finally spoke. His voice cracked. "Yes. You want the world. Yes. The fame, the wealth, the spotlight. Yes. You want the crowd screaming your name, the world calling you a genius, a god. Yes." The man grinned wider. "Then you've come to the right place." He turned toward the tree, placed one hand gently on its bark. "But there's a cost." Mike didn't flinch. "I don't have anything left." The man chuckled. "Everyone has something left." He stepped closer, so close Mike could feel the chill behind his smile. "I want your gift, but I also want your soul. Not now. Later. After you've tasted it all. After they love you. After they beg for your voice and kneel before your sound." Mike blinked slowly. "And until then?" The man raised a hand. Suddenly, the red guitar on Mike's back lifted on its own and dropped softly into the man's waiting arms. "This guitar," he whispered, stroking its strings, "is no longer an instrument." He looked up, eyes now pitch black. "It's a gate, a magnet, a collector." "Of what?" "Souls." Mike felt the air shift, felt his heartbeat slow. "Play it, and they'll come. Sing with it, and they'll cry. Strum it, and they'll fall at your feet." He handed it back to Mike, who hesitated. "Do we have a deal?" the man asked. Mike stared at the instrument. It felt warmer than before, like it was alive now, breathing, waiting. He nodded. "Yes." The man reached out his hand. Mike took it, and the moment their palms touched, the crossroads vanished. The name Mike carried weight in certain corners of Hawaii. Not because he had money, not because he was known in music circles. No, not yet, but because of how loudly he believed in himself. Mike Munisu, a young man in his mid-20s, was known more for his obsession than any talent. Obsessed with music, obsessed with fame, obsessed with the idea that one day the world would know his name. "One day you'll see my face all over your televisions and newspapers," he'd say confidently to anyone who would listen. Not once, not twice, every single day. People got tired of hearing it. They'd roll their eyes, wave him off, some would even stop him mid-sentence just to laugh in his face. You Mike? Famous? Please. Go find a job. Improve your life. Buy new clothes, start with that torn t-shirt you're always wearing like it's designer. Stop dreaming. This is real life. You can't even sing. You can't play anything. You're not a musician. You're not an artist. You're just useless. They said it with such ease, with such cruelty. And though every word pierced him, though his smile would falter for a second, his eyes never lost that flame. Because what they didn't know was that Mike wasn't dreaming. He was planning. One sunny afternoon, as Mike wandered through the narrow streets of Harare like he always did, hands in his pockets, dreams louder than the traffic, something caught his eye. He wasn't looking for it. It found him. At the corner of Julius Nyerere and George Salundika, beneath a faded red umbrella, sat a vendor with a wooden stall covered in old musical instruments. Rusted trumpets, broken keyboards, dusty drums. But right in the middle of it all, shining like it didn't belong there, was a red guitar. Not just any red. Blood red. Polished. The sunlight bounced off it like glass. The body curved like it was made to be touched, and for a moment, Mike forgot to breathe. He stepped closer. "How much for this?" he asked, barely able to hide the hunger in his voice. The vendor looked up from a pile of old chords and smiled, as if he'd been waiting for that question all day. $5, the man said easily, brushing some invisible dust off the strings. "Best I ever got from my supplier. Very special, that one." Mike kept staring, like he was in a trance. "Are you a musician?" the vendor asked casually. Mike blinked, snapped out of his daze. "Yeah," he said quickly, then hesitated. "Not yet. But soon." He reached into his pocket and pulled out 5 crumpled $1 notes, probably all he had left. No second thoughts. "I'll buy it." The man took the money, nodded once, and handed him the guitar like it was a secret being passed from one life to another. "All the best in your career, young man," he called out as Mike walked away, already holding the guitar like it had always belonged to him. Mike didn't look back. Didn't say thank you. He just kept walking. And the guitar gleamed like it had been waiting for him all along. That night, Mike found himself standing on the makeshift stage of a small, smoky shebeen tucked between 2 rundown blocks in Bear. The kind of place where the floor was always wet, the lights flickered without warning, and the only thing louder than the speakers was the sound of disappointment. He stood there, clutching his new red guitar like a lifeline. His palms were sweaty, his knees slightly trembling, but his eyes were determined. The crowd wasn't impressed. Men sat hunched over half-empty bottles, women fanned themselves with cigarette smoke, and someone in the back was already shouting at the barman for more change. Mike cleared his throat. A few people turned, unimpressed. Then he closed his eyes, drew in a breath, and began to sing. Fingers trembling over the strings, his voice cracked on the first line. The sound that came from the guitar was jagged, messy, notes tripping over each other like drunks fighting in an alley. Mike, please," one man shouted from the corner, waving his hand dismissively. "That noise is adding to our stress." The crowd erupted in laughter. Even the bartender shook his head. But Mike didn't stop. He kept going, fighting the guitar, wrestling with the chords, his voice raw, rising over their jeers. One by one, people got up. Some walked out. Others shouted over him. Eventually, the shebeen emptied out like someone had pulled the plug. Mike was left alone on stage, singing to an audience of plastic chairs and cigarette smoke. With a heavy heart, he packed up his guitar. No one clapped. No one said a word. He just walked out, the red guitar now feeling heavier than it had that afternoon. He headed home slowly, feet dragging across gravel, shoulders slumped. The streets were quiet. The world didn't care. Back in his small room, lit only by the dull orange glow of a street lamp slipping through his torn curtain, Mike lay flat on his mattress. The guitar rested next to him, silent. He stared at the ceiling. And in that cracked plaster above him, he didn't see failure. He saw flashing lights, screaming fans, fame, money, success. How? He didn't know. It didn't make sense. It wasn't logical. He couldn't sing. He couldn't play. Tonight had proved that. But somehow, deep in his bones, he still believed. Delusional? Maybe. But sometimes, it's the delusional ones who shake the world. As the city hummed in the distance and stray dogs barked at shadows, Mike sat up in bed, unable to sleep, staring into nothing. The room was silent, too silent. Even the night air felt like it was waiting for something. His eyes shifted to the guitar beside him. Beautiful. Useless. And yet, it pulled at him. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for it, not to play, just to hold it. As if it could speak to him. As if it was alive and waiting. That's when the thought came. He whispered it under his breath, almost afraid to say it too loud. A man's got to do what a man's got to do. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't a prayer. It was a decision. The kind that changes everything. The kind you can't undo once it's made. He didn't sleep after that. He just sat there, still as stone, staring out the window as the sky turned black and the wind picked up. And when morning came, Mike Munisu was gone. At first, no one missed him. In fact, they welcomed the silence. For the first time in years, the streets were quiet. No Mike pacing up and down First Street, shouting his dreams to the clouds. No distant sound of his horrible singing. No unshakable speeches about becoming the biggest star Harare has ever known. Just peace. Ah, finally, one old man muttered as he sipped his sweet tea under a jacaranda tree. The boy has found sense and gone to look for a real job. The women at the market laughed as they unpacked tomatoes and avocados. No more being disturbed by that noisemaker, one vendor said with a grin. The one who thinks he's Beyoncé with a guitar that doesn't even work. He couldn't sing to save his life, another added, wiping sweat from her neck. Let's enjoy the peace and quiet while it lasts. And for a few days, they did. The streets were calmer. The shebeens less tense. The vendors joked a little louder. It felt good. But then came the realization. Mike wasn't just quiet. He was gone. No one had seen him. Not at the corner store. Not near the old shebeen.